Hey!
Hi, this is Dr. Christine.
And Dr. Colin.
And we are your co-hosts for the exciting new podcast called
Love, Scrubs, and Stories,
where we dive deep into the world of dating and relationships and go beyond the people wearing the white coats, the scrubs, and the stethoscopes.
Come join us on this journey where we engage in dialogue and share stories of love, heartbreak, resilience, and triumphs. And we also navigate our professional lives with our hearts on our sleeves.
Please remember to subscribe and hit the notification button to stay up to date on all future episodes.
And we look forward to seeing you inside. Hey!
Hi.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Love, Scrubs, and Stories podcast. We thank you so much for being on. You could have been anywhere in the world, and we're super glad that you're here. I'm Dr. Colin Zhu. If this is your first time, please smack that subscribe button. And I'm joined by my lovely co-host, Dr. Christine Nguyen.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We are so excited today. We have an amazing topic to talk about. We have an incredible guest as well. And I think this is going to be a really fun one, Colin.
Yes.
What are we talking about today?
We are talking about the heart-brain connection. And before we brought this up, I had to think to myself, well, there is the gut-brain connection that everyone, all the new kids on the block keep talking about. But what about the heart-brain connection, right? So
that's big stuff.
So, yeah, it is. And at first glance, I thought to myself, okay, how do we want to approach this? And the first things that come to my mind, I don't know what comes to your mind, Christine, but first things that come to my mind is, sometimes they can be very at odds with each other, right? Like when we're in the business of medicine, we're in the profession, the beauty of medicine, very left-brained, right? And maybe we overanalyze, right? Maybe we're too cerebral and too much of in our head, right?
Maybe a little bit, just a little bit.
Yeah. But
it's not that we don't deal with the matters of the heart and brain, like just, all day long, right?
Yeah. But I'm also a hopeless romantic, right? But I've switched it over years to a hopeful romantic. But I would say to myself, ooh, if things align, that would be like amazing. But when they don't, the question I think of about this is, who do I listen to more? My, the brain, my head, or my heart, right? It's kind of like those two guys on your shoulder, right? Like, who do you listen to, right? So what about for you?
Yeah, and what does it depend on? Maybe perhaps if you get more sleep or not, I would imagine.
That's
yeah,
true.
Right. And so this is such I think an important topic, and it's certainly like understanding the heart-brain connection can be a game changer for our personal lives, right? It's, and like you mentioned, like, there's our professional lives and then there's our personal lives. And sometimes it bleeds into the other, like the professional lives bleeds into our personal lives. And so I think that like early on, I used to be, I think our profession has really changed, at least me. Like, I feel like maybe I'm using my brain more, and that's not so good, and I feel like I need to scale it back and find a better balance between the two. I don't know. Does that come with as we mature over time, or is it part of our profession, or both? What do you think?
Well, I think it's a very interesting balance of, serving, we're in a profession of serving at the end of the day. And I like to think of it as leading with your heart, right? Heart on your sleeve. You're being empathetic. You're opening up to the patient. You're allowing them space to be vulnerable, right? And then you go home, right? And if you are single or looking for love, then you're like, do I, continue to be vulnerable? Yeah, and just like lay myself out there? Do I want to open myself up for heartbreak? You just don't know. And I've had plenty of times of both, that analysis paralysis, right? And then, leading so much and, falling head over heels for someone. And then you're getting that reflexive, heartbreak, right? So I've experienced it. I've experienced both. I don't know what's more right. Or maybe should we just listen to our gut, right? The third guy, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, and also I feel like at the moment, like say, I was on a date and then enjoying the company of the person I was with. Then I feel like maybe at that moment, I feel like definitely the heart guides. But then when you leave, after the date, somehow like your brain just kind of creeps in more and it's like talking, and it's like, and then you start questioning things, and so that happens with me. I don't know how often that happens with you.
Well, I heard that we receive, and our guests can definitely clarify, I heard that we receive or we process through like 60, 70,000 thoughts a day. And to me, it's kind of like, who are those my thoughts, or are they, my family's thoughts, my community's thoughts, my, like whose thoughts are they? And that's also like, a novella, I'm sure I'm sure my guests will appreciate that one. So,
well, yeah, I'm very excited. I'd love to hear like the science behind the heart and the brain, and just kind of understanding how they work together, especially when it comes to matters of love and attraction and emotional well-being. So what do you think? Shall we bring on our guest? I can't wait to, let's do it. So I'm super excited to introduce our guest. We have Dr. Tom Pitts. He earned his medical degree, completed his neurology residency, and served as the chief resident at Wright State University's Boonshoft School of Medicine in Dayton, Ohio. He completed his fellowship in clinical neurophysiology at Columbia University in New York City, where he currently resides, and he is proud to call himself a true New Yorker. Dr. Pitts is board certified in neurology and clinical neurophysiology. He holds additional qualifications in headache medicine from the National Headache Foundation, is a multiple sclerosis certified specialist, and is a Myasthenia Gravis Foundation of America partner provider. He has been published in the scientific journal Viruses for his work with monoclonal antibodies during the COVID-19 pandemic in New York City, and speaks multiple languages, including Spanish and Italian. Currently, he works as a teleneurologist and occasionally appears on TV as a guest neurologist. In his spare time, he enjoys cooking, photography, bike riding, and traveling the world, and documents all the fun on Instagram, and I avidly follow him. So welcome to the Love, Scrubs, and Stories podcast. Hi, Tom. How are you doing today?
How are you guys? Thanks for having me on.
We're so excited to have you on. So, Tom, you're part of our White Coat Romance community, and I started noticing you in the group because, every now and then you would someone would ask for like an opinion about something or an issue they're having, or just wanted different perspectives, and you would chime in, and you were never afraid to just say it like it is, straight up. Say it like it is, also in a very kind and thoughtful way, which I greatly appreciated a lot. So thank you so much.
That's very nice of you to say. Thank you. I think everybody has to be a little bit mindful of that. It's easy to get carried away on the internet. These are real people, and even if something is very obviously wrong or said a little bit, offensively, or some of these posts can be a little aggressive, but it's important to just, rise above it and give good advice to our colleagues.
Yeah, we're passionate. And then, we both follow each other on Instagram, and I live through you vicariously through all of your travels. And so it's been so much fun. And I'm just so excited that you've accepted our invitation to come on to the podcast. So, Colin, shall we start off and kind of pick Dr. Tom Pitt's brain about this topic, about the heart-brain connection?
Yes, definitely. So let's kick things off. So the first question is, how would you define the heart-brain connection? And can you break it down for our healthcare professional audience and help us understand, what is the significance of it for our love lives?
Sure. In the romantic context, of course, the heart, sorry to say, guys, does not really play a role per se, right? It's not like the cartoon heart that we think of. But however, it is the recipient of the brain's activity in the setting of romance. So meaning, we talked about, you kind of led off with the gut-brain connection. Second highest concentration of nerves outside the brain is in the gut. Mm-hmm. And, that's why we have abdominal migraines. Sometimes that are acephalgic. They don't even cause pain. They just cause stomach disturbance or dysmotility. We see that in spinal cord injury, right? So the heart will beat fast or palpate or feel heavy. The gut will move, the so-called butterflies, which is really probably a transient gastroparesis potentially, if we really get down to the nitty-gritty of it. But that's mostly mediated by complicated central pathways involving many parts of the brain, and then moving down through a lot of the autonomic, so meaning the unconscious part of the peripheral nervous system, which manipulates all the organ systems. So it's a very complex kind of relationship, but the heart is not kind of the love generator and the brain the thought generator. It all happens within the brain, specifically, a lot of the limbic system.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I guess the cardiologists are, I wonder if they're gonna want to counter with you on that.
That would have been more fair, Christina. We brought in a cardiologist.
Coolest part about a heart is the automaticity center. Let's be real. So it's all nerve anyway. I'm just kidding. The heart. Look, I'll give the heart credit. Right, it pumps and gets blood up to the brain, so the brain can fall in love. So that's important.
Well, it makes a lot of sense. Well, let's talk about love and attraction. So are there neurological processes that explain why some people say they feel butterflies in their stomach, like what Colin was talking about with the gut, when they're around someone they're attracted to?
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. It's neurologic and psychiatric, right? From the psychiatric point of view, meaning that there's learned things. We're almost like AI, right? We learn and model as we grow. So maybe you grew up admiring a certain type of woman or man in school, and maybe that's kind of person, because you've had good experiences, that you kind of continue to date over time. Sometimes you have traumatic experiences with people and you avoid other people that may perceive them. So there's a psychiatric component. I think neurologically, the interesting thing is that most of us fall in love, but while there's a general scope, on functional MRI studies, it can be slightly different for each person. I always found that kind of interesting.
Wow.
So what regions of the brains, you had mentioned the limbic system, right? So when you say that, on the functional MRI, what are the differences that we see from person to person?
Right. There's a lot. I mean, it's really to the degree that these sites, the functional MRI will light up based on blood flow, which means that there's more metabolism. So if I isolated a patient and said, think of just something purely mathematical, you usually would assume that those associated regions would be receiving the most blood flow, so they would light up. This is kind of the general premise if you're not, familiar with functional MRI. What we find is that in most people, you do see this light up throughout the hypothalamus, the amygdala, these reward centers, if you will, the nucleus accumbens, which is like, a big player in the limbic system, through the locus coeruleus, the prefrontal cortex. There are many different areas, but what I find interesting is that kind of in many different people, and there aren't huge studies on this, but your hypothalamus may be more involved, mine may be less involved, my dopamine secretion may be higher, yours may be lower, but we both reach the same outcome, which is love as we know it. But I guess it's kind of like in an analogy, is your blue my blue? Is your red my red, or to what extent? So something like that.
Wow, gotcha. You're making me think of Netter's Anatomy now. So,
the good old days.
I was like, damn, my clinical neuroanatomy classes.
Regions of the brain. But I obviously need to brush up on my neurology skills. So I decide to crash a neuro conference. And, we're at social hour. And at some point, your eyes and my eyes lock, and I smile at you, Tom. And you're like, you know what? I'm a friendly guy. I think she would appreciate. I think she's got a good sense of humor. I think let's break the ice and let's drop a medical pickup line. Do you have something in mind that, you could say to me that you think would help break the ice?
Yeah, you know what? It would be horrible. I mean, if it's a medical neurology pickup line, and like I was saying, I think if I said this in New York City, I'd probably get like maced and tased. But you guys might appreciate this. If it was a neuro conference, it might go over. So I'd say, wow, are you status epilepticus? Because you've got me shaken.
Nice.
I mean, because in a neuro conference, right? What else could you possibly do?
Right.
At first, I was excited. I didn't know where you were going. I thought you said you actually crashed a neuro conference. So I was thinking, wow, I don't know that I would even do that. That's amazing. Great job.
Well, you got me laughing and we're chatting. Thank you. Thanks for playing along. And just for the audience know, occasionally we'll ask our guests to share a medical pickup line just to kind of add to the fun of this podcast. So thanks for playing along, Tom.
Sure.
So Tom, to follow up, there's this age-old saying that to follow your heart, quote unquote. And sometimes you think about that, and I literally keep thinking of that heart on the sleeve, analogy. I always visualize it for myself. And, because it's kind of like, on your limbs, it's outside of you. It's kind of like this vector that points in a certain direction, right? Follow your heart, right?
The Love, Scrubs, and Stories podcast is a collaboration and co-production between the Chef Doc and White Coat Romance.
The Chef Doc is a wellness platform that offers innovative approaches to thriving and offers a self-empowerment book, podcast series, on-demand masterclass series, as well as a brand new app. The app provides self-guided education such as food as medicine, self-care, and resilience. Coaching services are also available, whether you prefer one-on-one or group type settings. Please go now to your app store as well as Apple as Google Play to download for free.
White Coat Romance is a dating app for healthcare and health-related professionals and students in the US and Canada. It's a lively space where you can find love, companionship, and build meaningful connections with like-minded professionals. If you're single, go to the App Store and Google Play to download and join our vibrant community.
As we both serve these amazing communities, we also acknowledge the value of continuing education. Therefore, we're super excited to share an enticing opportunity with our listeners. Our episodes are continuing education eligible. That's right. You now have the opportunity to earn valuable credits while enjoying our content.
Rest assured, the episodes will always remain free as we are committed to supporting our communities and amplifying the voices of healthcare professionals. To get a better understanding of how this works, the first 3 episodes are free to obtain, then the rest of the podcast episodes are at a nominal cost.
So you might be asking who can earn credits? Well, physicians, nurses, nurse practitioners, physicians associates, pharmacists, dentists, as well as dietitians and dietetic technicians.
If you find yourself in need of CE credits, we kindly ask you to consider directing your CE funds towards supporting our cause. Your contribution would greatly help us nurture our podcast production and continue to bring you valuable content.
We are deeply grateful for your support. From all of us here at Love, Scrubs, and Stories podcast, thank you so much for choosing us.
And enjoy the rest of this episode.
So, asking you, do we take this, should we take this literally in terms of matter of the heart, or is it more of something that's more, cerebral, right? And exactly what is going on, when we do?
It's an excellent question. Yeah, follow your heart really means, in neurology, if I could translate that to neurology language, really means like, hey, this would be perfect for you and your primal needs. Do not let external, less important things impede that. Like, for example, let's say, and there was a form on this, I think, recently. But anyway, let's say you saw a woman that maybe your family wouldn't like, but you like her for whatever reason, right? I have tattoos myself. Let's make it tattoos, right? You say, wow, I really like this girl or guy. They're really attractive to me, but they have tattoos and I know my family wouldn't like that. Follow your heart really means that your brain is telling you really want that person, but then you've let these external things come in. So why is that a good or bad thing? It's a good thing because it teaches you, like, in the end of the day, you're the one who has to, fall in love or be with this person, and you can't please everybody. The not even downside, but let's say the counter to that is that, there could be consequences, socially within your family from doing that. Now, you could argue they're the pathologic one, but just from a strict kind of binary factual point of view, there is potential social fallout from just like following your heart whenever you want. Most of us get to an age that we don't really care anymore, but follow your heart really just means go with what you instinctually know to be correct, which would be probably that way because it is self-rewarding, whether it's love, companionship, physical, friendship, whatever it is that you're seeking. Your brain is like, no, ignore all this other stuff. We want this.
Yeah. And I guess this question would be more for like a dating or relationship expert, but wouldn't it be cool if we had like a poll of people that actually follow their heart, quote unquote, and see where they end up, right? Like the outcomes of that survey, right? Or do you actually know of it?
It's funny. I'm laughing not because there's actually that survey, but and I forget what it's called, but if you were to Google heart and brain cartoon, there's a heart and a brain cartoon. And that's what it's all about. Like the heart is like, we want ice cream, and the brain is saying, no, we have to study for the test. And sometimes the outcome is they follow the heart and sometimes they follow the brain. And the long and short of it, and I actually think this would be what we saw in the study. Sometimes when the heart goes for it, the brain is like, all right, I'm glad we did that. Sometimes when the heart goes for it, it goes catastrophically wrong. And the other way around, you know, sometimes the brain picks the more conservative option or self-serving option, and they don't have as much fun. And other times it works out great. So I think either way, there's no perfect, you know, outcome always, because it's so dependent on so many variables. But yeah, if you guys were bored, just refer to that heart brain cartoon. It's really funny, and it's probably actually true in real life.
Yeah, I love it. That's kind of like what we were talking about, like who's on your shoulder, right? So
Tom, do you have any personal stories or anecdotes that you could possibly share with us to kind of highlight some of the things that you're talking about and some of the struggles that we have in between the heart and the brain?
Yeah, I mean, you know, for example, I think there's a lot of you know, I see very complicated things on the White Coat Romance group, you know, situations that
You're going to analyze it now.
Well, no, I mean just like situations.
Well, he's a neurologist.
Well, they fit into this question so perfectly, you know. Like so many of them will be about interfaith, you know, in-laws not agreeing, like all these external factors, you know, that come into play. I think, you know, when you look at this, there is the whole underlying issue is convince me that these external factors are not as important as what my gut is telling me. And I'll tell you a personal account. So in undergrad, I was never really like huge on drinking a lot of alcohol, but I like to go out. You know, I'm Hispanic. I was a bartender at a big club at Florida State University. And so I'm a fly on the wall, you know what I mean?
Oh my God, that must have been so interesting.
Oh man, that's a whole different chapter.
I bet you have so many stories to share.
Oh, we
write a book on that.
A podcast episode for that one.
You could write a book on that. But, you know, I'll tell you that I got to observe people hitting on people. Men hitting on men, women hitting on women, women hitting on men, men hitting on women. And you're just a fly on the wall, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they'll go full out combo while you're sitting there cleaning. I mean, you are a fly on the wall. So I got to see what I thought to be, you know, successful and not, you know, who got who and who got rejected. And usually it was who was following their gut. You could just feel it. They came in, they were just straightforward. They weren't putting on an act. And even if they weren't the smoothest, it was like the genuineness and their actual desire. They're actually following what's true to them. That was successful. It's visible. It's palpable.
Oh, wow.
When you know, when somebody comes up and they're just being like, you know, trying to be like a player or whatever we would call it, or they're being hesitant because there's this social norm. It's, you know, oh, I'm hitting on someone that my parents wouldn't like. That is palpable and unattractive. So in the end of the day, I guess the moral of it from my personal experience is you should ultimately follow your gut. I mean, life is not a dress rehearsal here. That's what the brain is reminding you.
Because it sounds to you like then you could just be yourself. And being yourself, it's a very like beautiful thing. And that's comes across as being very authentic and genuine, and it allows the opportunity for that very, you know, authentic, vulnerable connection. That's what
trust yourself more than we usually do. We doubt ourselves a lot. Probably because we were taught to do that. Kids do not doubt themselves. My nephews, man, they'll go running like right through it. You know, they are headstrong. We learn to doubt ourselves through school, you know, negative interactions, bullying, you name it, social norms, comparing yourself to models, all this stuff. We kind of learn, like no one ever told you you're ugly. You know what I mean? We just like feel that way sometimes. And it's odd because sometimes we'll actually reinforce that negatively to the point that we believe it. And that makes you less attractive than you should be.
Yeah. I mean, I think that nonverbal communication outweighs, you know, verbal communication. And there's so much that's telling through media and, you know, just like commercials and magazines and all that. And having peer pressure is very real. I would love to know what goes on in the hesitation. Is it this cerebral thing where we're going through like a cost risk analysis of like, you know, I don't want to, you know, face rejection, right? Because rejection is real, right? Because societally, men, right, in a heterosexual relationship, societally, we are taught to pursue and to go after and to initiate, right? And to me, and, with experience, like there's this great fear of rejection. You would rather just keep it to yourself and, let that, potential, just walk by, right? And not actually pursue it. So like physiologically, is there something that goes on?
Yes. It's funny you say that. You nailed it. It is a bargaining. So, your body, you have to process the bargaining. So like in the example I was using before, oh, I found someone with, let's say, tattoos, right? And again, I have tattoos. I'm very pro tattoo. But let's say, you came from a conservative family and you're like, oh man, I really like this person, but they have tats. And you have to bargain, there's a hesitancy in one regard, right? This is one example. I have to think about, is it worth like making my parents upset and I'll clean up the fallout after? Because if that's the case, or I believe that they'll ultimately like them, I'm going to go for it. If you believe that it's like irreparable, if I go out with this person, that's it, sayonara family, you might take pause much more, even though that would be a very pathologic family situation, that would be, you'd probably err on the side of caution. Self-image, mirroring. If you are an angry person, you're going to appear, that's going to be palpable. You almost kind of exude it. If you're a happy person, that will also be palpable. So these things are very palpable, and you take pause when you don't think you are attractive. So some people will say, oh man, I want to hit on that person, but they're very attractive to me and I don't feel like I am that attractive. So in this instance, or compared to them or whatever it is, I'm not wearing the right outfit, whatever it is. And then you're like, okay, do I risk, like you said, is it worth rejection risk for me to pursue this? Or what most people do is split the difference. They hit on someone, but not as much as they would have. Like they might walk by them in the grocery aisle, try to make eye contact, see if the other person bites, if you will. Whereas if they felt good about themselves, they might go up and like full out talk to them. So that pause is really, a recognition of like the negotiation that needs to happen for you to pick your best and honestly self-serving, route, if you will.
Yeah. I've, done my own homework and research of a lot of different kinds of dating experts and gurus and stuff. And they say that, if you see someone that you like, right, you pretty much like, in a room, cocktail room, whatever, right, bar, whatever, you pretty much have 3 seconds, to approach this person, especially when you lock eyes or when they notice you, you literally have 3 seconds. And if you don't,
smile,
then and if you don't, it's like I guess that what is that called? Cost opportunity window just kind of like goes down the drain afterwards. So because there's a quick assessment that we each do, I feel like, both genders, that does, in an instant. It's amazing what a few seconds can do. Granted, you don't want to judge a book by its cover, but there's a quick assessment that happens when you lock eyes or when you check someone else out.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
It's true, right? Because you can come across awkward, right? There's situations where like someone's just kind of hanging around the vicinity, right? And then all of a sudden you look this way and they're there, and then you look this way and they're at this side, and it just comes off as being really awkward. And then it can come across like, sorry guys, but I've had cases where it comes across as being kind of creepy, and like you can't tell if like what is this situation, So just go for
and
it.
us doctors,
hi,
like we have the best social game, right? Because we spent so much time, out in the streets, right, Tom?
No. And it's funny because that is an example, Christine, of just being like it being palpable. You can sense the hesitancy. And then I don't know if I don't want to speak on behalf of other people, right? But neurologically, that would be submissiveness, which often is less attractive, depending on the person, of course, right? But it's almost like, wow, if this person's submissive to even just say hello to me, I don't know, that doesn't come across attractive. So yeah, you really can't go halfway to school with it. That's very unsuccessful. But ironically, it is the route that I'll bet if we surveyed people and they were honest, is probably most taken. because of fear of rejection.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, totally. Well, let's switch gears to tantalizing topic. So we've heard that certain foods can be aphrodisiacs. They act as aphrodisiacs and they can ignite romance that affect both the heart and the brain. Can you share some insights into this? And perhaps are there some aphrodisiacs that you can recommend? What are your thoughts on this topic?
These have been throughout time. I think these are described in some of the most ancient texts out there. I believe, if I read correctly, I'm no pro, right? But in my Google search, the Egyptians, there's mention of tonics and solutions, and the Romans and the Byzantines and the Turks and everybody, the ancient Mongol Empire and everything, all make mention of aphrodisiacs. And so I think, to spare you this whole list of controversy, because there's everyone you find that says there is that it is, you'll find an article that says it is not. But generally speaking, flowers and shellfish, those are kind of two aphrodisiac related foods. And champagne, bubbly alcoholic drinks tend to be very aphrodisiac as well. They tend to set a mood. Maybe that's because they are associated so much with weddings or parties or whatever. But there's something about the bicarbonate and the alcohol. I don't know exactly what it does, but it's also an aphrodisiac. So, but everybody kind of also, what is interesting is there's also a whole subset of people. There's so many outliers that it lets you know that everybody kind of has their own food to some degree. There may be some common ones, but we probably, again, as your blue, my blue, we probably all have some food that differs from each other, maybe based on upbringing, cultural background, whatever, that is somewhat aphrodisiac for us that may not be for other people.
So I'm going to throw
more emotionally connecting.
Yeah, so I'm going to throw out chocolate in there. For,
for
a lot of the ladies, that's definitely
excellent call. Chocolate, absolutely.
You mentioned flowers. Are you talking about like flowers in a vase flowers or like, baking flour?
Oh no, like
baking flour.
Well, he said flour. Water. I don't know what he was
like. You're such a chef, Colin.
Well, you guys are out on the West Coast, and there's a large Iranian population. And if you guys want, try some dishes with rose water in them. They're delicious. They have a rose water ice cream, which I think is really good. I'm sorry for our Iranian viewers. I'm sorry that I'm not saying the name of it correctly, but it's delicious and it's wonderful. There's also lavender-based coffees, lavender-based drinks. There's alcohols that are infused with flower essence, whether it's lavender is a common one again. Rose petals or rose water is another one. And those have been shown to be used over time, even back in ancient texts, as aphrodisiac, tonics, potions, things like that.
I mean, I'm no expert, but there is something to aromatherapy, and sourcing it from different types of like herbs and flowers. There's definitely something, there. So there is another question and we want to pay attention to time is, in our profession, across the whole gamut of different kinds of generalists, specialists, and subspecialists, all in our system demands, our healthcare system demands a lot, from us, right? And we, live in a very stressful, environment, and especially after the pandemic, more so. Pursuing love, maintaining love, cultivating, nourishing that is always going to be a perpetual thing. So from your perspective and having gone through everything we've talked about, are there any types of tips or recommendations you would recommend in terms of, like you said, there's no right or wrong to, listening to either one of them, right? The heart and the brain. Are there tips in terms of, is there a balance that we could strike in terms of, how do we go about, this in a very chaotic environment?
Yeah. It's funny as a neurologist, but any physician out there, right? But especially in neurology, we see a lot of catastrophic disease, myasthenia gravis crisis, traumatic brain injury. We see people that are truly ill. And I think in America, as specifically with some of you go on Instagram, there's almost a promotion of an idea that we are weaker than we are, that we are uglier than we are. We're not as smart as we think we are. We're sleeping worse than we are. that we're sicker than we are, often to promote a therapy, which is monetized, right? So there's this kind of growing hesitancy. And I guess what I would say is that when you consider the heart and the brain, you should, as we consider, right, with the heart being follow your gut and the brain being conservative. I think when you consider those two, you should just remember always moderation is key. But if you had to go to the 50% line, you should turn the dial a little more toward the heart. You're not as ugly as you think. You're not as dumb as you think. People don't perceive you as badly as you think. You're better than you think. You're doing a better job than you think. You're smarter than you think. People perceive you as, more clever or whatever than you think. And so I would say, I'm not saying, hey, I saw somebody, let's go sell the house and move to, all right, there's stay in the middle game, but don't, turn the dial a little toward the heart because you're more resilient than you think.
Awesome. Thanks, Tom. That was really, really good. I love that. I love ending on a positive note.
Hey, there's a Spanish-Italian coming out.
Hey, man.
I loved it. Well, as much as we would love to continue to chat with you on this fun topic, but we should try and, wrap this up. What are your top key takeaways that you would like for our audience to know?
Just be healthy. So one of the best things to be a good lover is to sleep well, eat well, hydrate well, control your mood, go to therapy, breathe, all these things, be your best you to the best of your extent. And don't freak out about the things that you cannot be your best at, because nobody can be perfect. And trust yourself a little more. Go hit on the person. Like you're probably, gonna either get success you didn't think you were gonna get, or your rejection won't be as harsh as you think it's gonna be.
Awesome. It makes me think of that Wayne Gretzky's, quote, right? You miss, 100% of the shots you don't take, right?
Perfect. Perfectly said.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much. Call to action would be if people wanted to learn more about you, connect with you, any follow-up, what's the best way to connect with you?
You know what? Usually through my Instagram. It's at New York City Neurons with an S. Yeah. At New York City Neurons. I'm always watching. I'm always on that DM. And I because I have my Asinia stuff, I have NYC stuff, bike riding stuff. I'm getting a lot of I get a lot of questions from people. And so it's become kind of a go-to for just general public to reach me.
I love it. And check out Christine.
Yeah, we'll be sure to add that in the show notes and on here as well. And I should tell you something, Tom, that I think it's really, so I want to give you some credit to even the evolution of this podcast. And so I don't think I ever said this to you, but so Colin, he always has these great ideas. He and I would chat every now and then, and he had mentioned this idea about having this podcast gosh, months ago. And I was like, oh God, Colin, I have so much going on, and things like that. I love your idea, and so, and then Tom, you had said something in the group, because there was a point where there was a producer that actually reached out to me, to consider the possibility of doing some sort of a dating thing for White Coat Romance. It never really went anywhere. But anyway, so I did a post on it, and you had commented about how there was so many stories that need to be told. And so something about that kind of triggered something in my brain. And I remembered what Colin said to me. And so I actually reached out to Colin. I said, Colin, hey, remember what you said about doing this podcast? Let's do it. He said, I said that? Do you remember this, Colin? You probably don't remember this, huh?
I appreciate it.
So thank you. It actually kind of reminded me about how, and that was part of the reason why Colin and I decided to do this podcast, because we have this amazing community of healthcare professionals, and we want to amplify everyone's voices, and there's so much that we all contribute. And so, and just like you, and how much you've given to us today and provided so much interesting, giving us kind of the background, the science behind the brain and the heart, and so much insights, and greatly appreciate you for coming on.
I appreciate you both for having me on. I'm a big fan of the podcast. And if you're watching this and you have not smashed the like and subscribe, those are two things that need to be done right now.
Yes. And if you want to help support us so we can continue to bring on amazing guests like, the neurologist extraordinaire, Dr. Tom Pitts, then please do that. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Tom, again for coming on. Christine, is there any last words as we close out?
No, I think we should wrap it up. Thanks.
Yeah, definitely. Guys, thank you so much for watching another great episode. If you like this, like Dr. Tom said, hit that subscribe button and comment. And if you felt that this was a benefit for someone else, please let them know. And until the next time, please say goodbye to Dr. Tom.
Bye, everyone.
Later. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching and listening to this channel. If you enjoyed this, please like, comment, and subscribe. And if you felt like this was a benefit for someone else, please let them know as well.
As a reminder, this channel does not offer medical advice. All opinions expressed are ours and our guests only. It is for general informational purposes only and does not replace professional healthcare services. Please consult your own healthcare provider for any medical issues you may have.
Until the next episode, whether you're in and out of your scrubs,
please remember to love yourself and others and lead with kindness.
Bye.